Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust TV. This train has set sail since 7 a.m. and so much has happened. We have now approached that time where we will take our first conversation for the day. Bandits spraying villages with bullets, killing residents and setting up buildings ablaze. Rampant cattle rustling and clashes between farmers and herders. Mass kidnapping for ransom. These are among the litany of challenges confronting the Nigerian state ahead of this weekend general elections. INEC officers and police stations have been attacked across the country. What danger does this portend for the election? And we have with us in the studio a regular friend of the house, a security consultant, Mr. Stephen Okwori. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Yeah, always glad to be here.
Yes, like I told the guests that came in earlier, you don't appear to be going through the Naira scarcity crisis. Your face looks calm, and clearly the problem hits us different.
But the problem is hitting everybody. I'm telling you, it doesn't show on the face. Yeah. That's the problem.
Interesting. I hope that in the shortest possible time we will go past some of these teething challenges and get our lives back as quick as possible. Yeah. Security challenges.
Yeah.
We are here again, 48 hours to the elections, discussing practically the same things. We saw them in 2015. We were hoping that some of the lessons we learned with those challenges by 2019 would have fizzled away, but no. 2019 became even worse, as the records will show. We set up all kinds of committee to investigate what had happened. Till today, we had not seen anything come out of those committees. INEC had told us in very clear terms that they don't have the capacity to even prosecute post-election violence. But beyond INEC, as we have seen in our introductions, there are a number of pockets of attack occasioned by different reasons that seem to suggest that it will be difficult to have elections in some of those areas. Generally speaking, in your opening statement, how would you situate our readiness security-wise for the elections that we're preparing for in another 48 hours?
Yeah, thank you for having me once again to talk on this topic that is very timely, you know, because election is the next 2 days or so. And unfortunately, if you ask me sincerely, I don't want to agree that all measures or modalities are in place to see how to forestall any possible violence in these coming elections. The signs are there, and we'll keep seeing the signs of violent attacks and all that. Just the way you said, there are attacks on INEC facilities, attacks on the security agencies, stations like the police, and you're aware that the police, they are the lead agency in carrying out security of lives and property of voters and every other stakeholders that are concerned or that are involved in these elections. So, when attacks on state police stations are being carried out like this, then and the police themselves cannot stop attacks on their own facility. So where is the guarantee that they can protect lives and properties of voters or people that have come to observe the elections, monitor the elections, carry out reports on the elections? It's unfortunate that these things are happening, and elections come 4 years after. So from 2019 to now, we expect that the necessary measures would have been put in place to see how to forestall any possible violent attack. But INEC, they've been crying out that insecurity is their major challenge in these elections and all that. And fortunately, there's a committee, interagency consultative committee on election security, co-chaired by the National Security Advisor and the INEC National Chairman himself. The whole idea behind the committee is to carry out risk assessment, threat analysis, and all that. And I want to believe that they have done a whole lot of work to see how to carry out a violent-free elections where voters will come out, have confidence in the security agencies that their lives will be protected when they come out to carry out their civic responsibility. But I foresee voter apathy, if you ask me, because I don't see this the presence of security agents at the hinterlands, you know. At
Flashpoints.
Yes, I don't see the possibility. We have about 176,846 police stations, units that these elections will
take place.
And where they are deploying about 400,000 security agents, I mean to say, the police, the civil defense, and the military, and all that. How well will they cover all these polling units that we are talking about here? So there's a possibility of
1 or 2 skirmishes.
Very possible that something might happen. And look at the Southeast, for instance. Just yesterday, a Labour Party senatorial candidate was killed in his car, shot by unknown gunmen with 4 others, and they set the car ablaze. You know, and just that same yesterday, that same Enugu, a member of the House of Rep, his convoy was attacked. A driver in his convoy was killed. So how do you now begin to see how to avoid these situations when they begin to happen in our rural communities where these votings also take place? So, I mean, it's a tall order for the security agencies, and we hope and believe that they will carry out what they need to do to see that voters are protected.
Well, it's quite interesting that you brought up the issue of the Southeast, because I was going there. Because it's you can't talk about election security now and not talk about the Southeast. The Northwest has been a center for lots of attacks, banditry, and the rest of it. But we've recently seen an upturn in military operations there. We're getting results. Bandits being killed and the rest of it. There's an uptick in the military operation that is there. But coming down to the Southeast now, we hear reports of all these things happening. People being shot, people being killed, unknown gunmen carrying weapons, brandishing them about, threatening people that they should not come out for the elections. And unfortunately, we're not seeing that sort of. We're not seeing the security presence there. We're not hearing of any action being taken to forestall this. And still, the security agents will come out and say, all is well, come out and vote. Do they know something that we don't?
I want to believe that the conventional security agencies, they work on intelligence. There are certain informations that they gather or they have at their beck and call that we, the outside populace, are not aware. But in doing that, we should be able to look at also at their response system or plan. You know, you cannot just keep assuring the voters that election will be free, fair, and violence-free. You know, you have to guarantee them. You know, let them have that confidence. Just the way you said. They keep assuring us, and we still see this menace still going on. So I want to believe that there's a lot that they need to do. And I discovered that they are even overwhelmed, if you ask me, because they don't even have enough manpower. You know, we keep talking about this manpower thing. We have a population of over 200 million Nigerians. And if you ask me, over 200 million Nigerians that we don't have 1%. The security agencies put together, the agents, operatives, if you put them together, we don't have 1% of them policing or guarding us or protecting us. So is that not an issue? It's a challenge. So what's the problem? We have able-bodied men that are there. Now, they are deploying over 400,000 of the very small number that we have for just election duties. So the other population that are there, who now protects them? You know, so there's a lot that we need to do, and all these warning signs are there. We should be thinking more professional in trying to see how these issues are handled. You know, but politics begins to play certain roles in what we are doing. Ethnicity begins to play certain role. Religion begins to play certain role in handling security issues. You know, so these are the issues. I think the agencies need to step up and do the needful, and the government also needs to do the needful by recruiting more. I have said it times and times about that. Security anywhere in the world is not cheap. It's not a cheap sector that one will begin to see how to manage. You know, we're talking about lives and property here.
Mr. Okori,
Yes.
Your comments seem to, has elicited a number of thoughts, and I think we should interrogate further. And that for me is, what exactly is the problem? Is it the lack of intelligence? Or, like you said, you talked about politics creeping into conversations around security, or the unwillingness or even lack of willingness on the part of our people? Because, I mean, we were just reading in the news this morning that the private sector donated 350 vehicles and some security gadgets. We see how policing is done in other climes. IT-assisted policing, more or less, using every database available to the country. Today we have BVNs, we have the NIM, where we said over 70 million people are subscribed to. We have a voters register that has about 94 million people. We have phone lines totaling over 120 or 30 million, as the case may be. And yet, we have people who have carried out crimes, and phishing their identities have become completely impossible. Is it that we can't find where to procure the equipment that will help us with this forensic analysis, or there is just complete unwillingness on the part of the state to really prosecute these people, given that they are agents of these politicians, as it were?
I want to believe that it's a problem on the part of the government, if you ask me, because the funds to be able to procure these gadgets or sophisticated gadgets that we're talking about, to be able to pinpoint or know people that are carrying out this heinous act. It's so terrible that even with the SIM policy that the government introduced, that they must have a link, you know. All this is to say how to fight crime, you know. But kidnappers, as we speak, still make use of mobile phones,
registered phone.
Yes, to negotiate for ransom. So why is that? Why is it happening? You know, so it goes to show that there's a lot that the government needs to do in conjunction with the security agencies. During the last regime of the immediate past IG, if you ask me, their technology in trying to locate victims in the event where they are kidnapped was down for over a year. Well, the reasons because they were owing the contractor or the subscriber, the local what do you call it now?
Service
providers. They were owing them money. So is it a serious country in the way you want to talk about fighting insecurity? Such sensitive. You understand what I'm saying? It was down for over a year due to non-payment of monies that was due to the service provider.
Should we be having service providers even mine critical infrastructures? Don't we have the capacity, or can't we build the capacity in-house to develop? Because I say this, Mr. Okori, as you as well know, that in places like the US, well, sometimes they say we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to them. These critical solutions are developed in-house. They recruit some of the finest minds from the institution. Why is this impossible for us to do?
You see, I want to believe that there's this, although every security agency has its own clear-cut mandate, you know, on what to do. But in the event where you know that this is beyond you, there's nothing wrong with collaborating with another sister security agency to see how to harmonize and work out things for the betterment of the Nigerian state and the citizens. You know, it's unfortunate that sometimes ego tries to play a role. You know, the DSS wants to feel that they know it more. The police wants to feel that they know it more and all that. But I want to believe that the goal is it's one:
to secure
the state and the citizens that are in. You know, but situations where you begin to see that there's this tussle between rivalry between security agencies, I don't think it augurs well for the state and for the citizens. The fact of the matter is that Nigeria needs to be secured, and they have the duty. It's their duty to see that we are secured and protected as well. In the event where they lack certain things or certain instruments or whatever that they need to use to work to see that Nigeria is protected and safe, they should still look at how to look for it. Very recently, the president commissioned some operational assets by the Nigerian police force. If you go there, you will see a lot of gadgets, APC vehicles, and all that. A lot of things were, you know, commissioned by the president. But let us see that put into use. You know, let us say that it is working. It's not by commissioning them. At the end of the day, they are packed somewhere and all that. And for the election, the police has been given about 64 billion to see how to carry out their duties during the elections. Let us ensure that the monies are judiciously used for the purpose that it was provided for. You know, so with all this, I think, and the response to intelligence and is supposed to be swift. You know, not something that they should be dragging their feet when it comes to responding to attacks or incidents that are harmful to the citizens.
Well, you've raised quite a number of issues talking about the security situation, and one of the major things you talked about was the issue of personnel, and how we, or lack thereof, of the personnel to actually cover. And then we have the issue of equipment, we have the issue of response time, and the overall general attitude to security we have. It's 2 days to the election now.
Yeah.
I think I think it's late in the game for us to change anything.
I'm telling you.
So right now, are we sitting on a powder keg just waiting for it to explode?
If you ask me, I would say yes. Do you know why? The perpetrators of these violent acts are always ahead of our law enforcement agents. They're always ahead. Where they sit and plan. For instance, what happened yesterday in the Saudis at Enugu, where they went and sat and planned, you know, the law enforcement were not aware. The attack was carried out. They now responded. You understand? So they're always in a more advantaged position, you know. So it goes to show that we only respond after the attacks are carried out. So now the question is, how do we now see that these attacks don't even happen? You know, so in the event where we try to see how the attacks don't happen, then I think we will have a headway in all of this. Now, election is on Saturday. These unknown gunmen in the Southeast, other criminals, actors, and all that, they are everywhere. It's all over Nigeria, where they are sitting and planning and we're not aware. Unfortunately, the law enforcement are also not aware, because these guys, they sit inside, they go into the forest or wherever their hideouts are and plan and come out and execute, you know. So that's where my fear is. Voters in the hinterlands, who now protects these voters when they come out? Don't forget that the law about voting or presence of security agents is that they shouldn't be armed.
Yes.
They are expected to carry batons to the polling units. A voter that comes, a foreign observer that comes to observe, a journalist that comes to cover the voting situations at the polling units, and party agents and whoever that comes during an election, is it a baton that will protect these stakeholders, the voters, when these unknown gunmen or criminal actors come to attack or strike? Is it a baton that will protect them? It's not a baton. You know, so when I appear like this, I try to let the government and the security agencies know that when that law was made, to see that it is only batons that law enforcement should take to our polling units, because the state of Nigeria wasn't like this. So they should look out for how to give the voters some source of confidence, and other stakeholders that come to monitor the elections, you know, some confidence that when they come to carry out their civic responsibilities or carry out their official functions of coming to monitor and all that, they should see that some presence of armed security agencies or agents are there. And with that, they will have some confidence that when these unknown gunmen or criminal actors come, at least they will have some source of protection or cover. But I hope that the security agencies are taking that into serious consideration.
Mr. Corey, now moving a bit to solutions. Like Ibrahim said, it's just 2 days to the election, and if you have to completely make sense of what had happened in the past or where we stand, you probably would not even come out of your house that day. But we all have responsibilities. People like you and ourselves will have to be in the field. They've told us about 145,000 observers will be here. If we give them half that number as police escorts, then we have taken away from even the 400,000. And not to talk about the politicians that are moving around with avalanche of police people. But as a professional, what should we do? Those of us who have responsibility towards this election, whether you're an observer or a journalist out there who needs to keep the public abreast with developments in the field, or even a security person who unfortunately has to go out to work, but it's not even protected, sufficiently kitted to protect himself, not to talk of protecting the life of people. What should you look out for, and how should you behave when you see some of the signs that are obviously not positive?
I'm going to talk on three parts. What I expect the government and the security agency should do, and then what the citizen that is going out to vote that day, what I expect them they should do as well. And as the other parts, journalists and all that, when they see all these areas where issues like this come up, they should try to see how to report promptly, so that it would avoid more damage. Now, just the way I said initially, the government and the security agencies, they had the last 4 years to have planned towards this election. Don't forget that this election is too close to call, because nobody will come and begin to beat his chest that he's going to win the election, And as a result of this, there are some individuals that have this survivor mentality.
At all costs.
At all costs. They want to go all out to see that their candidate wins. Of course, they want to go out to carry out either illegal or illegal activity to see that their candidate wins at the end of the day. Now, all these informations are at the security agencies' tips. So these are things that they should be acting on. The possibility of a supporter, coming up with a possible attack or violence and all that, to see how to forestall. Now, I expect that the security agency should always think ahead, and not be taken unawares. Considering what we are seeing today, going forward, they should be thinking ahead. What's the possibility of any attack or whatever? What if it comes? What do we do? All that. They should. But unfortunately for us, when you see police deployed at some polling units and other, because I've seen them, they are so casual, very unprofessional. They don't even envisage that anything can happen. So in the event where they are so casual and very unprofessional, and these things happen, what would they now do? How do you now respond to it? So all these are things that the law enforcement, the heads, the IGs and the commissioners of police and all that, they need to let these other ranks know. I'm pretty sure that they would have trained them. I'm just thinking, because training is one aspect in law enforcement that it takes
forever.
They hardly do it. Even when they do it, in the event where they are supposed to spend like 5 days, they'll spend 2 days and collect their extra codes or DTAs and begin to see how to run back to, So all these things are issues. Close monitoring, accountability, all these are things that we should not be taken for granted, especially when it has to do with what we are talking about today, security, And on the part of citizens, when they go out to vote, I expect that once they get to their polling units and they get accredited and all that, they should just stay by the corner. This is a period where they should avoid political discussions, Avoid political discussions, because before you know it, it will get heated up and it will trigger one violent incident or attack or the other. So they should just avoid political discussions on that day. Once you cast your vote, I would advise that you go back home. Politicians telling voters to stay and protect their votes is a wrong thing to do. They should not do it. Once you cast your vote, thank God there's Viva. What's the essence of Viva? For what we saw in the last election in Osun, votes that were more than the required number were reduced, and at the end of the day, we now knew who is the winner of the election. So, since there is Viva, if you cast your vote, just leave the place before the counting even commences, because we just saw in your clip here where they were talking about drug abuse and all that. People or youths that indulge in drug abuse, the moment, of course, you should know that once votes are counted, are done, and before they begin to count, that is when the drug that they have taken
Will come into effect.
comes into effect. So in the event where you try to become a victim of what they have taken, as you cast your vote, just retire to your house, you know. And this is the period where I want to advise that supporters should stop wearing branded T-shirts or whatever of political parties or that they belong, because you don't know where they see you with a political party logo or something. They see people can decide to attack you, and they should avoid even going to polling units with this.
By the way, the law also forbids that.
The law forbids
campaigns
it.
ends today.
Exactly.
All forms.
So, but they need to be aware. Some of these, permit me to say, the illiterate ones in our rural communities, they don't even know all this, you know. And that is why this peace accord that presidential candidates keep signing, I just wonder how far that peace accord will go. They sign peace accord at the top, it doesn't trigger down to
the bottom.
To the bottom, you know. Even educated ones, their supporters that are even educated, their spokesperson and all that, are they even keeping to the peace accord? They're not even keeping to the peace accord. So if their supporters that are educated, their spokespersons, they say derogatory words about other political candidates and all that, how do you expect the ones that are in the rural communities to even have an idea of the peace accord we're talking about here?
No, actually, that was actually going to be my next question. I wanted to touch on the peace accord thing. We talked about it earlier when we were doing the newspaper review, and it was all over the place that a peace accord has actually been signed. Yeah. And I posed this question. Some people actually believe that the message of this peace accord is targeted at the wrong people, because they don't see the politicians as the ones who actually go out on the streets to cause all this chaos and the rest of it. It's the followers and it's the supporters that actually do this, and the message should be targeted at these supporters. Yeah. But some also argue that these supporters are doing this with the blessing of the political champions, so to speak. Without the politicians actually giving them the leeway to do that, they will not do it, and they're doing it in their name. Where do you stand on this?
It's a two-way thing. You see, politicians, Nigerian politicians, they don't practice what they preach, what they come to in the open. You know, some of them will come, preach against thuggery, political thuggery and all that. But when they go behind, they hire thugs, you know. So if we have sincere Nigerian politicians, what they come out to say, when they go back, you know, they should also preach that. But I tell you for free that Nigerian politicians, some of them, hire thugs. And now, the state, the Nigerian citizens have so much been impoverished. You know, even to see 5,000 naira is a problem. So just imagine that you want to hire the service or the services of political thugs and you have something to offer them. They will jump at it. They will jump at it. So it's so unfortunate that political thuggery is something that is a serious menace. But I want to tell you that these guys, they don't just operate just like that. Some of them are given directives by these politicians. Go and do X, Y, Z. But some of them, out of overzealousness, they want to do it just to see how to impress. Once the message gets to their boss, we did something and all that. And if the boss doesn't give a nod, you know, then you know that the boss is against. But I will tell you that very few Nigerians that are politicians, when their supporters behave like that, very few of them will talk down on them and say, don't try it next time.
So the issue lies with the politicians now.
Who now?
The politicians. They are the ones who should be targeted with this message, because they are the ones to cascade the message.
Exactly. Exactly. It's not going up and signing that. I want to tell you that signing at the International Conference Center ended there, if you ask me. It doesn't go down. It doesn't go down. Even the ones that are running or vying for other offices and all that, they are supposed to take the message from that level down to the grassroots. They are not doing it. All they want, their interest is what matters to them now. By any means, you know, politics is who gets what, when and how, you know, it begins to play out. How they get it, it doesn't matter to them. Either by violent means or non-violent means, It's their interest is what matters to them.
As we wind down this conversation, something else is very critical I would like you to speak to. If you look at the last 7 elections, for some of the elections, we managed to prevent largely these interventions by these non-state actors.
Yeah.
And somehow, on a general scale, you could describe them as peaceful elections. But by the moment the results starts coming in, we see a new wave of violence, especially where candidates have caught followings, you know. And you said in your remarks that this is one election that has been really very close to call. 24, 48 hours to the election, it is still difficult for any Nigerian, regardless of what data you are looking at, to tell where the pendulum will swing. So, and that is because somehow, because we have had a prolonged campaign period, candidates at some points that were seen to be lagging had picked up, ramped up capacity, and they've been able to build substantial following across board.
Yeah.
Which is critical to security. You talked about risk analysis and all of that. By the time this result starts coming out, and because some of these followers are not exactly very exposed, and they begin to get feelers that the candidates that they feel have this popular following is not emerging as a preferred candidate. The instantaneous calculation or conclusion, as it were, is that he's been rigged out, and one little spark, you know, can engulf the entire country. How are we prepared for those kind of risks? And this time, we used to have 2-horse race, so sometimes you prepare for just one section of the country not accepting the result. Now it's practically a 4-horse race, if you like, and so you have multiple risk points that are waiting, like Ibrahim, to borrow Ibrahim was, that are sitting on the get powder just waiting for ignition to explode. How do we deal with this side by side with the fact that we'll have a security personnel that will be overstretched over this period?
Post-election violence is not new to us here in Nigeria. I would say that I was even a victim of post-election in 2015 when Buhari won. I was returning from Benue, around the Nasarawa region. We were attacked. Now it's not new. Even countries that have gone far in their democracy, like America.
Yes, we saw that.
January 6th, during Trump's,
yes.
There was also post-violent election, post-election violence. Even in Brazil, very recently. Okay, so it is not new to us here, right? So now, I expect that this is not new to us. There are certain flashpoints that the law enforcement needs to be taken into consideration now as we speak. Thank God for the committee, that ad hoc committee by INEC. What's their duty or what's their job? Look out for these possible places where attacks can come and begin to see how to man those points, you know, in the event where there is need for a rapid response, you know. So all these are things that I don't need to come and begin to teach them. Are things that it's their duty, it's their responsibility to see that they begin to think in this direction. And they shouldn't be caught napping. You know, in the event where issues like this wants to spring up, they should be able to nip it in the bud.
Interesting. You know? I wish we have more time to spare our consultant in the house to talk a bit more on this. It's been wonderful talking to Mr. Okori, who is a security consultant and analyst. He has given us very useful insight. I hope we take that into account as we all approach our polling unit in another 48 hours. What's important is to stay alive so that you can be part of the next government. And you have to do that bearing your family. Think about your family when you go out there. Think about your community and whatever you want to do. That way, if we do not provide a platform, people will not seize it to incite violence. It's been a wonderful day. I hope we have brought you some education, some entertainment, and some enlightenment that will help you make informed decisions that will keep you alive over the next couple of days and always, of course. I am Sunday Michael Ogu. Thank you very much for showing up in the studio, and let's do this again tomorrow.
All right, so it's been an absolute blast right here in the studio, bringing you Daybreak this morning. Let's do it all again tomorrow. I am Ibrahim Yusuf.